Shot.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am truly honored to welcome the council members and the public to the first meeting of the California Education Interagency Council. I'm Debbie Cochran, Executive Director of the Council. Governor Newsom's Master Plan for Career Education was released in 2025, and it provided an actionable framework for preparing all learners for the workforce of tomorrow. Its first recommendation was to establish a state planning and coordinating body. And 1 year later, we are at the inaugural meeting of that body. In relation to their authorizing legislation for this council, Senator Padilla and Assemblymember Fong cited the enormous need for an educated workforce that can meet the needs of California's economy. Filling this need demands cross-sector collaboration, and that has never been truer than it is today. Our education and workforce systems, along with the realities that Californians are facing, are being reshaped in real time by technological, economic, and demographic forces. Navigating this terrain demands intentional, collaborative strategies that leave no Californian behind. This is what this council was established to do, and I am excited to get started. Before I turn the floor over to Chair Dr. Linda Darling-Hammond for some opening remarks and to officially call the meeting to order, I want to share some logistical information about our meeting today. First, all of the items on our agenda and their associated materials are posted and can be found on the council's website at ceic.ca.gov. The meeting is scheduled to conclude at 4:30 p.m. and it will be run according to the Bagley-Keene Open Meetings Act. There are 9 items on the agenda, 3 of which will be open for public comment. If you're in the room with us in Sacramento and want to make a comment, you can complete a speaker slip in advance and hand it to Mariah. Mariah, can you wave your hand? They're out on the front table. You can also otherwise just signal your intent when the time comes. A speaker slip is optional. We will also be opening up public comment on Zoom. So if you're on Zoom and participating virtually, you'll just need to raise your hand in order to submit your public comment. Also some logistical information about the space we're in. The microphones that are picking up our sound for the virtual component of today's meeting are found in the ceiling. So that means in addition to the discussion occurring at the table, they will pick up side conversations that are whispers between council members, whispers amongst members of the public, or even loud paper wrestling. So please be mindful of that throughout the next few hours. Additionally, Wi-Fi is available for use in this room. As folks may have tried, it's a little complicated. Matthew, who is outside at the front table, can help you get set up with that if you need assistance. So with that, I am very happy to turn the floor over to Chair Darling-Hammond.
Thank you. And we all owe Debbie a huge appreciation for all that she has managed to do in the recent weeks. Newly appointed to this council with initially no staff and lots of expectations. So I want to start with that. We all know that we're experiencing a lot of changes in California's economy and the world economy. We also have persistent gaps in opportunity and economic mobility. These are driving a need for us to take a fresh look at how the state prepares people for school and for work, and to find ways for our K-12 and higher ed sectors and workforce leaders to work together collectively and coherently. Unlike many states, California does not have a governance structure that brings the higher education sectors together with each other, or with K-12, or with the workforce leaders in the state. That's really the reason for this council. We need to take up the conversations about where the state is, where our society and our economy are going, to raise awareness and questions about what that means for our educational systems, and to launch initiatives that will address those needs and questions on behalf of California for All. We are all aware of the impacts of AI on work. There are many forecasts that share that 30% of jobs in the economy will either be eliminated or dramatically redesigned by 2030, which is right around the corner. In the last couple of months, I've met an AI robot in the information booth at San Jose Airport. He did not know much. Couple of months, I have been an AI robot I have given an insurance claim to an AI attendant. Seen driverless cars. We also, if you read the news, saw one crash into a house in the Bay Area not long ago, like in the last week or two. I've used AI in my own research and seen it hallucinate facts and references. I talked today unsuccessfully to an AI attendant as I was trying to park with the mobile parking at a place that didn't show the number that was supposed to go with my. So AI offers a lot of possibilities and a lot of challenges, both to our workforce as we know it, but also to the management of AI itself. These changes are going to challenge our conceptualization of the education curriculum that we've inherited, our ideas about pathways to degrees and employment, much of which was launched a century ago. Back in 1892, there was a committee of 10 appointed by the NEA that said, here's what the high school curriculum should be. In 1927, the University of California created its boards committee, the Board of Admissions and Relations with Schools, and they adopted most of what had been in the Committee of 10 report. That has been the basis for our curriculum in A through G and in the high schools, with some modifications along the way. But that was all a century ago before there was, computer science, data science, and a variety of other things that are now going to dominate what goes on in the economy. In the 1960s, we had California's master plan for higher education, which created a strong foundation for learning by delineating roles across the various post-secondary education segments. And this was predicated on a labor market that predominantly featured jobs that required minimal formal education. Now, as of course, we are well into the 21st century, the workforce, the economy have transformed, and we need to create new strategies that will allow systems to evolve and be more responsive to these rapidly changing needs. And the recognition that learners will have to upskill and change directions many times in their career. So it's not like you go to high school and then you choose college or career, and those are segregated and on different paths. And, one takes you through one channel and the other takes you through the other. These are things that are going to be blended and braided. People will go into work, their work will change, they will go back to higher education and so on. A summary of recent studies about the implications of these changes concluded the following, which I found really helpful to my own thinking. This transformation will demand a workforce with enhanced digital literacy, adaptability, and the ability to work alongside intelligent technologies. Industries that focus on developing and implementing AI solutions are expected, of course, to experience growth, creating new job opportunities in areas such as AI development, data analysis, and machine learning. I would add AI remediation and correction and instruction, and navigate the evolving job market and safeguard against potential displacement, emphasizing education in STEM fields and cultivating skills that are uniquely human, such as creativity, critical thinking, and emotional intelligence, is what will enhance job security. So increasingly, we've got to think about how we build this sort of learning ability, this adaptability, as well as the content bases for those. In addition, we have a lot of equity challenges in California. California has one of the widest gaps in income distribution in the country. The top 10% of earners, those who make an average of more than $300,000 per year, earn 10 times more than families at the bottom 10% of the scale, who must scrape by on only $29,000. This gap has been fueled by earnings gains among educated workers. We know the housing costs that then make this even more challenging for many, many households. And so we've got to take into account the ways in which we really are lifting and shaping a new kind of workforce. As Debbie noted, this council will provide us a place to acknowledge, analyze, and propose actions to meet these needs. And that was the first recommendation of the governor's master plan. So to support the development of the master plan for career education, to begin with, we had representatives of state agencies and higher education providing initial strategies across many, many forums around the state. Stuart remembers those well. We were in a lot of those conversations together. And across all of these forums, agencies and community members highlighted several needs: to modernize our system, to enhance coordination, to address structural barriers that make it difficult for Californians to navigate education and workforce training. Our charge is to inform those efforts by reviewing economic changes and demands for new skills as a foundation for discussing and strategizing implications for TK-12 and higher education curricula. It's a small agenda. We have a whole 3 hours to in solving these problems, but I want to get us going on calling the roll, establishing a quorum, and getting about the work.
I will go ahead and call the roll so that we can get the meeting started officially. Linda Darling Hammond,
Here.
Tony Thurmond,
Here.
Meredith Turner,
Here.
Dilsey Perez,
Here.
James Todd,
Here.
Christine Lally,
Here.
Stuart Knox,
Here.
Emily Desai,
Here.
Michelle Peralt,
Here.
Kristen Sories.
Here.
For the clarity of the record, we have 10 members present. We have a quorum.
All right, and I think we want to go around and introduce ourselves so that we know who each other are. So just have each member state your name, title, and the agency for the record, and maybe start with Emily over here.
Sure, thank you, Chair. Emily Desai, I'm the Chief Deputy Director at the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development. Doug Snowa says Gomez. I'm standing in for Director Dee Dee Myers. Thanks.
Ours does not have a really great acronym, but I'm James Todd. I'm the Vice Chancellor of Academic Affairs at the CCCCO. So he didn't pull it off, which is Chancellor's office.
Good afternoon. I'm Dilsey Perez, the Vice Chancellor of Strategic Enrollment Management and Student Success at the California State University.
Good afternoon. I'm Meredith Turner. I'm the Senior Vice President of External Relations and Communications at the UC Office of the President, standing in for President Milliken.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ephraim Egan. I'm the Assistant General Counsel at the Government Operations Agency, otherwise known as GovOps, and I'm the legal counsel for the board.
Darling Hammond, President State Board of Education.
Good afternoon, everyone. Tony Thurmond, State Superintendent of Public Instruction on behalf of the California Department of Education.
Hello, Linda, and thank you. Stuart Knox, I am the Secretary of Labor and Workforce Development for the state of California.
Good afternoon, Christine Lally, Acting Director, Department of Consumer Affairs.
Good afternoon, Kristen Sories, President of the Association of Independent California Colleges and Universities, the ICCU.
Thank you. Michelle Peralt, Chief Deputy Director for Policy, Department of Finance, and I sit on behalf of our Director, Joe Steffenshaw.
It's great to see you all here. I know that on the short notice that we had to call this meeting, it was a challenge for people to get their schedules lined up so that we could get launched. I want to give a special shout out to Dilsey, who is here after 12 days on the road in many countries and many cities. And this is her last stop before she goes home. So special thanks. But thanks to everyone for arranging things so you could be here. We're going to have a little update and reminder about the Bagley-Keene Open Meeting Act from Ephraim.
All right. Well, I guess I don't really have to introduce myself again. Ephraim Egan, Assistant General Counsel. I've been an attorney for almost 16 years. About 5 of that as counsel to boards or other commissions. So have some familiarity with the Bagley-Keene Act. So want to go over that, at least in the general aspect this afternoon. So if we go to the next slide, we'll go over our agenda. It's going to be about a 10 or 15-minute presentation. So don't worry, I'll try to go through this as quickly as possible. We'll be covering what is the Bagley-Keene Act, who's covered. As I'm sure you guys can surmise, this council is covered by the Bagley-Keene Act. Then I'll talk about the kind of big pitfall or potential trap, which are serial meetings. Then go over the notice and agenda requirements, the right of the public at meetings, and teleconference meetings for any future teleconference meetings that the council may have. So next slide. So what is the Bagley-Keene Act? So the Bagley-Keene Open Meeting Act, it requires multi-member agencies, state agencies or boards or councils to conduct open and public meetings. There is a similar act for local agencies you might be familiar with called the Brown Act. That covers local agencies. Bagley-Keene is kind of the sister to that and covers state boards and councils. So really, the purpose of the act is to cover two really important things. One is to promote an open and consensus building model of decision making. And the second is to ensure that the public has a seat during this decision making process. So unfortunately, by design, the Bagley-Keene Act is not intended to be efficient. So you might think it's a bit confusing that it takes a lot of time for you to get from point A to point B. Unfortunately, that's the way the act is designed. But you kind of keep those two core things in mind that, hey, it's to build a consensus building model and to bring together a group of people from different backgrounds and different experiences. And then hopefully through that combined shared experience, be able to get to a decision. That's really the purpose of Bagley-Keene. You know, if the legislature wanted efficiency, they would just create a department and designate a department head. In their infinite wisdom, at least for this council, that's decided to not do that. So, you know, that's what we're gonna have to deal with. And really the main thing is that the public needs to be a participant in this consensus building process. So that's part of the reason there's notice requirements. It's to inform the public and give them the opportunity to be here. The agenda requirements, which details what's on the agenda, what's going to be discussed, so the public can decide, hey, should I be here? Should I not be here? Is it worth my time to come? And the right to comment, which allows the comment to at least, or the public to at least provide comment as to what they feel is important in that decision-making process. Next slide, please. So who's covered by Bagley-Keene? There's really two elements that you have to meet. It has to be a state body and it has to conduct a meeting. So what's a state body? State body exists under the act as a multi-member body, so it has to have obviously multiple members. It's created through 5 different methods, but the easiest is by statute, which is how this council was created. There are some specific multi-member bodies that can be exempted, like the legislature or state courts. Unfortunately, this council is not exempt, so we'll have to abide by the act. And then the last element, what's a meeting? So it's really 3 things. It's a majority of the state body, so at least a majority of the members. They have to gather to hear, discuss, or deliberate on an item that's under its subject matter jurisdiction. So really the key there is, again, you have to gather at least a majority of the members. It has to be something that's under the subject matter jurisdiction. So if it's for, you know, if all you guys gather together and it's for weekend brunch plans, not covered under the act. But if it's something to deal with, you know, education, arguably it's under that act. There is an exemption for staff briefings. So if staff were to brief each member individually, or the member had a member had questions about specific things that are coming up in the agenda, that's exempted under the act, because that way you can at least come into the meeting with enough information to at least make your decision for that upcoming meeting. There are some other exemptions within the statute. You know, if you happen to be present at a conference or some other public meeting or social event, those are exempted because, again, you're not really focusing on what's covered under the act or what's under the subject matter jurisdiction of the council. Another exemption, which is great for me, is for written communication from attorneys to the body. So if we were involved in litigation, I sent you guys an email. That's okay, just as long as we don't make a decision over email, which is one of the traps which we'll be covering in the next slide. Serial meetings. And this is the biggest thing to worry about. Next slide, please. In Bagley-Keene, because it's important, or the legislature has deemed it important for the public to be involved in the decision-making process. The legislature has kind of carved out and specified that any workarounds around that are prohibited. And the biggest one is serial meetings. So what's a serial meeting? It's essentially several communications, each among less than a majority of the state body, when, if you combine them all together, would involve a majority. So an easy example is, let's say there's a 5-member board. If, let's say, member A was discussing with member B about something that's coming up in the agenda, and they're like, okay, I think I want to vote this way. Or, you know, hey, we have this issue coming up. I think we should both say no. And then B meets with member C and then tries to get votes to vote no. That would be a serial meeting, because again, you're having these communications individually and not in the public and in the public discourse. And the public can't see the reasons why you would vote a certain way, if you're going to disclose them. And that's again what the legislature wanted to prohibit. They wanted this conversation to happen in a meeting in the public for people to see. So that's what we're trying to stay away from. So this can happen through any which way. It could be through any kind of communication technology, so texting, email, carrier pigeon, if you guys are doing that. Any kind of form of communication, or even using a indirect person like a staff member, or trying to send correspondence from A to B through me, that would not work because that's prohibited under civil meetings. So again, just be cautious of this. If you're thinking about discussing or having questions about a topic that's going to be the subject of a future meeting, don't communicate with other members. You can do that with staff, that's totally okay. But again, with other members of the council, that's prohibited. Save that for the actual notice meeting. Next slide, please. So keeping with that importance of the public participation, the act has very strict requirements for the meeting notice and agenda. So under the act, the state body must give advance public notice of its meeting, including specific agenda items that it will be considering at each meeting. The meeting notice and agenda has to be sent to any person who requests it 10 calendar days before a regular meeting. A meeting notice also has to be posted on the website, so our CEIC website. The notice has to include a few things: time and place, contact information for a person to answer questions if the public has any questions about certain items, the state body's web address, and how persons can ask for accommodations under the ADA. And then lastly, the agenda has to have at least substantive information about the meeting so that the average person who's looking at the agenda can make a decision about whether to attend or participate in the meeting. So generally just enough where it's, of course, you don't have to state what the outcome will be or, all the major facts, but enough where the public's like, oh, that might be kind of interesting to me. I kind of want to comment on that. That's all that you would need to give in the agenda itself. Next slide. So what are the rights of the public at the actual meeting itself? So they have really 4 things. They're allowed public attendance at the meeting, public participation at the meeting. They're allowed to monitor at least the votes taken at meetings, and they are allowed to have public access to meeting records. So for the first thing, for public attendance and participation, there's really minimal restrictions that can be given, or at least under the law, for the public to attend. So they can attend without identifying themselves. So I know we have speaker cards out in the front. That's really just more for ease of us. But if someone chose not to write down their name, that's within their rights under the Bagley-Keene Act. They can even give a fake name. That's totally okay under Bagley-Keene. They don't have to identify themselves. The one thing is since we do have security here in this building, security is allowed to say, hey, I need to at least know whether or not you're allowed to come into this building or get some identification for security purposes, but they can't provide that information to CEIC staff and at least for identifying the speaker themselves. And then for each action item, the state body must give the public the opportunity to comment on each agenda item before voting on each item. Again, it's so that you can get a sense of what the public feels or thinks about a certain item before each member votes. And then taking action through a roll call vote or a specific tally satisfies the requirements under the Bagley-Keene Act. So essentially, if we do roll call vote and each person, we now announce each member's name, and then whether you vote yay or nay or abstain, that's enough to cover the requirements under the Act. And then lastly, we'll go over teleconference meetings. Bagley-Keene offers 2 ways that you can conduct a teleconference meeting. A traditional way and a alternative, which will sunset in January 1st, 2030, unless the statute is extensive. So what the teleconference meeting? Teleconference meeting occurs when a state body members participate at different locations and communicate with each other electronically through audio or audio and visual. Under the traditional method, there's really a few elements that you have to meet. The meeting notice and agenda has to identify each teleconference location and then post an agenda at each teleconference location. Importantly, each teleconference location has to be accessible to all members of the public. The meeting must be audible, just audible. So you don't have to provide video at each location, but at least it has to be audible at each location. And the public must have an opportunity to speak at each teleconference location. Additionally, since it's only an audible requirement, all votes must be done by roll call so that at least anyone who's just listening into the meeting can determine who's voting for what and which way they're voting. The one thing about this is just be careful. Let's say in a future meeting, you say, hey, I want to designate my house as a teleconference location. Just be prepared. That means you're going to have to say if you're taking the meeting in the living room. That means you have to post the agenda and the notice on the front door. That means you have to invite the public to your living room as well. And if they want to speak in your living room, they're going to have to be able to speak in your living room. So my only advice is, maybe pick an office or something that's a little bit easier to navigate and make sure you have the technology available so that, the public can speak at that location. The last one is the alternative, which is a teleconference and remote location meeting. There's really three key differences here. The first one is that the state body must provide remote access to the public equal to that provided to each state body members. At each location, the meeting has to be visible and audible. So not just, that they can hear, they have to be able to see the meeting as well. So Zoom or Teams or anything like that should be fine. WebEx, that should be more than sufficient. And then the last requirement, which is a bit tough, is a majority of the state body members must be physically present at the same teleconference location. So there's a key with this alternative method, there's two locations, a teleconference location and then remote locations. Let's say for the CEIC, if this was designated as a teleconference location, we would need to have at least a majority here. For all the other, at least in one location, the other teleconference locations need to be posted as well. If it's a remote location, you don't have to post the address of that location. And you don't have to allow the public to be able to speak there. So that's an important distinction. This is just a little bit tougher because it also means that you have to have a quorum at least in one teleconference location. So when we're having quorum issues, we just have to make sure we have at least quorum in one physical location, wherever that may be. It doesn't have to be this building, could be somewhere else, but it just has to be one location. And then again, the remote locations don't have to be disclosed, so that's nice. So if you want to take the meeting in your office or your office in your home, totally okay. You don't have to disclose it or allow the public to speak there, which is a plus. So that's about it. I know I've kind of skipped over a few other things like closed sessions and whatnot, but I just wanted to give at least a flavor of Bagley-Keene for those who are not, didn't or have not been not had to deal with Bagley-Keene. Are there any questions from board members? And of course, if any other questions come up, feel free to email me. My email is ephraim.egan@govops.ca.gov. So feel free to email me for Bagley-Keene questions. I can answer them to the best of my ability. So thank you.
All right, thank you so much. We're going to move on to agenda item 3, which is the update from myself. I've been chair for a day and a half. So I'm going to pass the update on to Debbie Cochran, who actually has more to tell us about what she's been up to.
Thank you so much. I have been here for a whopping 7 weeks. So I am definitely very excited to have you all join me. I mean, I feel like when I was sworn in the first week of May, I was obviously employee number one for this council. And so by having you 10 sworn in, we have just increased by tenfold the number of people who are committed to this organization and mission. So I'm very excited. I wanted to share, I want to share sort of 3 buckets of work that I've been doing for awareness, along with some reflections about that work. I think one of the biggest ones I just want to highlight is something that's been a big focus of mine over the last 7 weeks is just the early days logistics of establishing a new state entity. This is a lot of the stuff that nobody really thinks about, but is actually pretty important. Things like acquiring a domain name and figuring out your content for your website and actually getting the content onto that domain name. Securing a vendor for a mailing list management and figuring out, getting the training on how to use it so I can send out the required notice, those sorts of things. And of course, just the logistics of public meetings. As you heard from Ephraim, it can be a lot. Ranging from scheduling this meeting with basically a month's notice to finding a location to securing a Zoom license to allow for virtual participation. So I'm excited. It's not always the most glamorous of things, but it's certainly been a big focus of mine. I just want to give a few thank yous in this realm. First of all, I want to thank all of you for making yourself available for this meeting. When I had first reached out in May about availability for June, at least one of your schedulers said, "Are you asking about 2027 or 2028?" So yeah, obviously we know where that landed, but I share that because I really do think it underscores the significance of us being able to pull together this group and how something that's so simple sounding, just getting a meeting calendared, was anything but. So I know you all are very busy people with very busy calendars, and I'm really appreciative to those of you who adjusted their calendars to make this work, to showing up here on day 12 of travel so that we could meet our very first statutory deadline of having our first meeting by June 30th, 2026. I also want to thank Secretary Knox as well as his staff for allowing us to have our meeting in the beautiful Labor Workforce Development Agency headquarters, as well as DGS for just being on hand today and for all the preparations to make sure that we could have everything working smoothly for participants regardless of where they are. And then finally, I have to give a massive shout out to the Government Operations Agency for just helping me and this council to navigate everything that we've done so far, whether logistical or technical or legal or whatever else. The leadership and staff of GovOps have been invaluable during these early days, and we just would not be here today without their support. So, okay, so that's sort of first bucket. Second bucket I want to talk about is that we have entered into agreements with both WestEd and the Foundation for California Community Colleges to jumpstart the council's efforts. I wanted to move quickly on this so that we could take advantage of resources that were available in the 25-26 budget year. Most of you will know that this budget year is ending in a matter of days, and there were resources available because we're just getting up and running. So by entering into contracts with those partners, we've been able to take advantage of those resources without jeopardizing our ability to hire staff and do whatever we need to do in the next budget year, which again starts in a matter of days. So again, first we have engaged the WestEd Center for Economic Mobility. They will serve as a neutral facilitator to support the development of the council strategic plan and associated activities over the next 18 months. This includes, very importantly, providing hands-on support for today's meeting. We have Kathy Booth here, we have Leanne, we have Regile, who is helping to manage all of the aspects of this. So again, massive thank you to them for getting us going today and everything that's going to happen over the next 18 months. WestEd, most of you will know, has a very well-established track record of providing technical assistance to many of the council agencies and has helped to design and launch multiple related coordinated efforts like C2C, the Cradle to Career, as well as the Master Plan for Career Education. So when we get to agenda item 5, which is about the strategic planning process and sort of foreshadowing how we're looking at the next 18 months, Kathy Booth, the co-director of WestEd Center for Economic Mobility, will be assisting with that presentation. And second, I mentioned also the Foundation for California Community Colleges. We have engaged them to conduct some analyses designed to help the council make decisions about potential opportunities to explore. More specifically, the foundation will be working to identify and prioritize potential paths forward within the realms of alignment of internal state agency plans and work, as well as more external programs and funding sources. Both of those two areas are explicitly called out in the council's statutes as goals. So they're going to help kickstart that work for us so we can figure out where those opportunities will lie. And the foundation, of course, has extensive experience supporting statewide and intersegmental initiatives in all of the areas of focus for the council, as well as a long list of partners and collaborators at the state and regional levels. So that really makes them an ideal partner for this work. And then the third area of work for myself over the last 7 weeks that I would love to share with you all is just that I've been meeting with a very wide range of interested parties, including council members, as you all know, to just listen and learn and better understand how the field sees the opportunity of this body having been established. I've met with dozens of individuals with more than dozens of conversations about the charge that's given to us and where we might be able to move forward. So rather than focus on the programmatic aspects of what I've heard from that, because it is incredibly wide ranging, I wanted to share 3 reflections on the conversations as a whole that I've had, because I think it might help to set the stage for some of the conversations throughout this meeting. First, I think it's very important to underscore that the establishment of this council does not equate to a magic wand, right? Previously intractable problems are not now going to be easily solved like flipping a switch. And I think we have to be clear about that because we need to gauge our goals, expectations, and plans accordingly. We're gonna solve problems for sure, and we're gonna do it by approaching them carefully and earnestly without losing sight of the urgency of these matters to Californians in California. The second takeaway is that the ambitiousness of the council's goals and efforts needs to be calibrated against the resources available to support those goals and efforts. The council itself, as you all know, was established at a modest size. The collective skills, wisdom, and capacity of the organizations at this table, those represented here, must be seen as part of the equation. I think the more that the council members bring to this table, both through contributions and council level discussions, but also through contributions of staff level support to operationalize the work, the more we'll be able to achieve. And then finally, I think the most important note to end on is that there is just enormous potential for the council to make meaningful headway on the goals and duties assigned to it. How we do that is something we'll figure out together. There are a lot of potential paths forward, but the opportunities are certainly there. The field knows it, the field feels it, and the broader field is very excited to see where this group will take it. So that's the end of my update. That's 7 weeks for you. I'm happy to answer any questions if anyone has any.
All right.
Okay.
Seeing none, we're gonna get into the business of the work that we're doing today. And I would just add a footnote to your comments that much of our responsibility is to surface problems, that is to say, to identify where the state is, where some of the needs are, so that collectively members of our governmental system can address them, as well as people in our institutional contexts. So just to clarify that we will not be out there all by ourselves trying to solve all of them, but we do have the responsibility of really being diagnostic and analytic about identifying the issues to be tackled. So agenda item 4 is the University of California's Board of Admissions and Relations with Schools representative. And it's great to see you, Ahmet Palazoglu from BORS. I mentioned earlier that, the moment that we're in really calls on all of us to be thinking about what's ahead and how to get there. I've been privileged to participate a little bit in some of the board's meetings as this really thoughtful group has been thinking about where we should be heading in the future. So I'm really excited that you're here to help us understand what's on the table.
Thank you, and good afternoon, Chair Darling Hammond and the members of the council. Really, I would like to thank you for your invitation to this inaugural meeting and giving me the opportunity to share with you what the UC Faculty Academic Senate has been doing to ensure access and success for students considering our campuses as part of their educational journey. As Chair Darling Hammond said, my name is Ahmet Palazolu. I'm a professor of chemical engineering at UC Davis, and I currently serve as the UC System-Wide Academic Senate Chair for 2025-2026. Next slide, please. First, I would like to take a moment to introduce the Academic Senate at the University of California. The System-Wide Academic Senate and the 10 divisional Senates provide the organizational framework that enables the faculty to exercise its right to participate in the university's governance. The faculty votes respond through a deliberative process that includes the standing committees of the Senate, the Academic Council, the Assembly of the Academic Senate, and their divisional counterparts. Next slide, please. In accordance with the tenets of shared governance, the Senate's responsibilities include authorizing, approving, and supervising all courses and curricula, as well as determining the conditions for admissions, certificates, and degrees. In other areas of university life, the Senate exercises an active advisory role. Campus and system-wide officials regularly seek advice and review from the Senate on a wide variety of issues affecting faculty welfare and the academic environment. Excellent. One of the standing committees of the Academic Senate is the Board of Admissions and Relations with Schools, the acronym in BORS. And BORS oversees all matters relating to the admissions of undergraduate students. It regulates the policies and practices used in the admissions process that directly relate to the educational mission of the university and the welfare of the students. The committee also recommends and directs efforts to improve the admissions process. Slide, please. An academic Senate administration work group report from UC San Diego back in November 2025 spotlighted concerns about a growing volume of entering first-year students who were underprepared in math. And recently, a group of UC faculty, citing similar concerns at UC Berkeley, issued an open letter asking for the restatement of the SAT and ACTs as part of the admissions criteria. In March 2026, I charged BORS to develop policies and partnerships roadmap for the 2026-27 academic year that outlines BORS plans to lead the design, discussions, and direction of any actions the UC might take to address first-year undergrads admissions policy issues and build stronger K-12 partnerships. This special charge was issued to empower BORS to develop recommendations to strengthen policies for first-year admissions in order to first provide access to a UC education for the most promising high school students in California and beyond, and two, increase the likelihood that future first-year students entering UC have adequate preparation in reading, writing, math, and/or critical thinking skills to be successful in college-level courses and UC programs following matriculation. BORS continues to be firmly committed to the UC Board of Regents' long-standing policy that states the university seeks to enroll on each of its campuses a student body that, beyond meeting the university's eligibility requirements, demonstrates high academic achievement or exceptional personal talent, and that encompasses the broad diversity of cultural, racial, geographic, and socioeconomic backgrounds characteristic of originally developed nearly 25 years ago. BOR's comprehensive review guidelines and selection criteria reflect this ongoing commitment to admissions policy. Moreover, in addition to alignment with admissions policy, WARS continues to be actively engaged in consultation and productive collaboration with the UC Office of the President and California State Board of Education to identify potential solutions for strengthening K-12 preparation and first-year admissions and undergraduate admissions policies, while at the same time ensuring that eligible California residents continue to have the opportunity to access a world-class education in alignment with the mission. Next slide. Board's proposed roadmap outlines the charge, composition, meeting frequency, and deliverables for two different work groups that go from early October 2026 through late April 2027, focused on one, consideration of the use of standardized tests in the first year admissions process, and two, an overarching review of the UC's current A through G framework to determine whether A through G requirements adequately prepare first-year applicants for success at UC. From July 2026 to September 2026, in the next couple of months, for each of these work groups, Academic Senate will recruit colleagues who have relevant expertise and experience regarding college preparation, undergraduate admissions policy and research, and or K-12 educational policy and research. These colleagues may include, but are not limited to, UC faculty from system-wide standing Senate committees, at-large UC faculty with relevant expertise, non-Senate colleagues within UCOE, and at the campus level, representatives from the State Board of Education and the California K-12 system, as well as faculty with relevant expertise from the California State University system. Next slide. In addition, Board's roadmap includes plans to receive and consider input from internal and external constituencies at various times during the study period. Board is expected to transmit approved recommendations to the Academic Council by the end of July 2027 for our additional 90-day system-wide review in fall 2027. Following that review, final recommendations will need to be presented to the Academic Council and subsequently to the Assembly of the Academic Senate, and if approved by both bodies, recommendation will then be transmitted to the system-wide UC Provost and UC President. And the latter of whom will decide whether to forward them to the Board of Regents for its consideration. I note that the Regents have final decision authority on Academic Senate recommended modifications to existing criteria for undergraduate admission. If any or all recommended modifications are approved by the Regents, then these modifications would at the earliest be implemented for first-year undergraduate applications submitted in fall 2028 for students matriculating in fall 2020. Depending on, of course, the nature of the modifications and recognizing that some type of changes may require a level of notification period prior to implementation. That concludes my presentation. Next slide, please. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
You're open for questions. I'll start. I know that there's going to be an evaluation of how to think about A through G in the coming years in terms of its preparation for the college context. And I know sitting in on some of the meetings that the committee has been thinking a lot about how knowledge is changing in the college context as well as in the high school context. So I wonder if you want to comment on the kinds of considerations that you think may be on the table, and I don't know if anybody else wants to ask or comment on that question as well.
Board has been actually looking at this for quite some time, as you know. It's they haven't started sort of thinking about this just in the last few months. At least until about a year ago and more, issues around the A through G framework in terms of its adequacy to assess how students are prepared and how they are sort of ready for success at UC has been one of the main discussion points, as you know, and witnessed. The committee, I think, is going to start from based on their experiences over the years with these discussions, and I think they will consider each aspect of A through G framework. And I really don't want to prejudge any of their conversations that are going to happen, but my sort of take of it is that will be very comprehensive and thoughtful and evidence-based review and recommendations that will follow.
Yes, Member Thurman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for your presentation. I wanted to ask you about the comments you made about the concern about the incoming students as it relates to math. I wanted to ask if there was a recommendation. I know that in the past, there have been recommendations for certain types of courses, quantitative type courses that might help prepare students. And I wanted to know if there would be a recommendation being made because the state has gone about it in some different ways, has created a new math framework for how to teach math, has emphasized scholarships for those who want to become credentialed teachers in math and other critical areas. But we sometimes hear different feedback from employers, and they say, we're not just looking for algebra, calculus, geometry. They're saying that they want things like data science or other focuses of hands-on applicable tools that students will be able to use when they become employees. I wonder if there was a recommendation after the observation that was made.
Again, I will I guess advise patience for the recommendations to come, but I think you're exactly right. I think the point is both the workplace environment as well as the secondary education environment has changed over the years. You have how the students are prepared and what they need to be successful also has evolved. So that's, I think, the main reason why we wanted to take a comprehensive look at our admissions policies altogether, because as part of the comprehensive review process, we want to use it on the table and see what works and what doesn't, and how do we sort of respond both to the workplace needs as well as what is happening at the K-12 level. Of course, creates the pipeline for us. But we need to make sure that we have that understanding secondary, I guess, or the K-12 as partners, as well as what we require and what we think would help the students to be successful and be to the workplace.
We look forward to those conversations. I'd mention one other thing. As students sometimes still struggle with math, the state has passed a graduation requirement to teach personal finance. And that begins this coming school year. And I raise that to say that many districts have found a way to use teaching personal finance as a way to reinforce concepts of mathematics in ways that students find very practical and hands-on. They learn about the stock market, they learn about banking, they learn about business. And when they graduate, they have less debt. And over the course of their lifetime, they will earn more than $127,000 more dollars when they've had a course in personal finance. Now, we want that for everybody, the adults do. But we think that that's a great opportunity coming forward for California students and your future students.
Indeed, I think it is not only, I guess, the conversation will have to include what I just mentioned earlier in terms of the K-12 and then workplace needs, but also how we teach them. Once the student comes to UC, how do we teach them and how do we sort of reach to them so that they are successful? Because each student comes with a different background. Mm-hmm. Some are less prepared or more prepared than others. Mm-hmm. But what are the ways that we can create that each student will have a pathway for success? And that requires a bit of an internal sort of self-reflection also on our part to see what works and how we can sort of grab the students and make sure that they are they benefit from the math education or the series of courses that they take as part of the degree program.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for your presentation. I did not know about BORS and appreciate hearing about it. I think my question is related to ICUS and the work that happens there, and particularly the impact of certainly your discussions. And I think you said that it will be done by July 2027. Is there an opportunity in partnership with the California State University or in other segments of course to do that work as you are going? And will there be presentations to ICUS along the way?
Again, the roadmap, the roadmap, I guess it's about 11 pages. If you have a chance to look at it, it outlines some of those steps and it explicitly mentions CSU as a partner in this. And ICUS, of course, I am a member of ICUS, and we have been focusing on the essentially the intersegmental transfer issues specifically. But over the years, both with the CSU partners and the college partners, we have developed a very collegial and very productive relationship. And I'm sure, as I said, as outlined in the board's roadmap, they will be reaching out and expecting feedback and comments on the segments as we go forward.
I'll just note that while we think about boards in the context of admissions to the UC, the A through G requirements extend much further. So CSU and UC, both use them for admissions. Beyond that, in state statute, it says that any A through G requirements must be made available to all students in every district and every community in California. So they have a big reach on the curriculum of K-12 and certainly, in all of the high schools. Many districts require A through G completion as a graduation requirement as well. So we'll all be eagerly paying attention to the process and thinking about its implications for the whole system. Any other questions before Ahmed? Yes, please. James.
I'll provide a comment. I don't know that it's a question as well, but kind of piggybacking a little bit on some of the CSU points as well. A lot of our students also end up either through dual enrollment and other pathways going through the community colleges and we also have our own transfer issues as well, trying to make them more streamlined, transparent for students, that there's true credit mobility between our systems. But we also had a recent audit that came out the last couple of years. I know we're also going to have a hearing on that, I think, next week. So we think about ICUS and also BORS positions as well, reviewing admissions. Also urge us to think more about how we can concretize standard pathways for students, whether they go to the CSU or the UC. I know there's been some pilot work in terms of our own ADT transfer processes, but I will say, from our perspective, the more that we can open up as many pathways as possible and align similarity for our ADTs across institutions at the CSU and in the UC, we really welcome conversations and ways to partner on that, as well as with AICCU institutions. We find that the more possibilities that we can provide students and roadmaps to getting there, I think that will really increase our transfer rates too. So as you do this planning, I know this is much more K-12 centric into UC, but put those out there as mountains for us to climb together.
I appreciate that comment. It's certainly, as you mentioned, the UCLA has the pilot program for AETs as a way of entering some specific programs, most of them in the STEM fields. And that pilot program is now being considered for extension to other campuses. But of course, this roadmap really focuses on the first year admissions.
Yeah.
But as you said, ICUS has been the segmental agency in the Senate. They carried the boards since on that thing and quite familiar with not only the first admissions requirements that are into this, but also the transfer issues that are into that system.
I just wanted to add one piece to this discussion, thinking about our goals and particularly related to equity and goals. And when we look at A through G, understanding that it's almost half and half, a little over, that students are eligible, right? So we lose a lot of the pipeline to higher education at the A through G level. And if you break it down by ethnicity and demographics, those numbers are quite less. And so I think this is an excellent discussion and look forward to partnering. Yeah.
Yes.
I would just mention that maybe help close that gap. There is a quite a hefty amount of money in this year's budget for dual enrollment programs. And we have found that those students do better as they navigate all those challenges. So I think it's 100 million. I don't know. It started out at 500 million. I'm not sure where it ended, but
We'll know tomorrow.
well, yeah, those dollars.
It's all.
Say it again.
You're cool.
Those dollars, will be available.
Right.
And this is a priority connection between all of the segments.
To that point, sometimes the dual credit courses don't count for A through G because they're determined by different metrics and standards. So that's another piece of the puzzle, is how to align across all of these efforts so that kids can take advantage of them.
Mhm.
And ICAS has spent quite a bit of time this year focusing on dual enrollment. Specials about it and to our partners to really understand how that is sort of deployed and how it helps students.
And given the economic needs of many, many families, the ability to get on a smooth, fast track into and out of higher education is really, really important. And so these alignment questions are incredibly critical. So we're all excited about your presentation and about the work. Thank you very much. And really, at this point, we want to open up some discussion and public comment on our strategic planning process. Kathy, are you going to lead us off of this? Kathy Booth from West Ed will lead us into this conversation.
So much, Chair. If you go to the next slide, I've got a video. So I realize it's gonna be a little hard for everyone to narrate over this, but it'll be available as a link. So there are a couple of items in statute that we have to respond to that pertain to when a strategic plan is finalized and then subsequently a work plan gets issued. So we're gonna be approaching this through a 4-part process. And the goal is to just figure out a way to decide of all the many, many things that you can tackle, what you want to start with first. So we're going to begin today, which is to figure out what your priorities are. So there'll be a discussion following this agenda item where you'll get the ball rolling and things that are important to each of you that you would like to see this council tackle together. And then we're going to follow that up with some one-on-one meetings to really get a deep understanding from each of you how those priorities are emerging and get more detail about what it is that we're hoping to see in each of those areas. So from that, we're going to be able to develop a topic list, and that'll give us a chance to synthesize where there's already some shared vision of what you'd like to get done. And that will become the focus of our meeting in October. So that's where you'll have a list of priorities and some detail about them, and then you'll be able to prioritize and decide which ones you want to go forward with. So once we've got clarity from all of you about what the priorities are, we're going to start thinking about what are the areas of work. So we just heard dual enrollment raised as an issue. That's a pretty broad topic. So be able to think about what is it about dual enrollment that you really want to tackle together first. So we'll go back out and do meetings with each of you individually to understand what you're thinking about, for example, dual enrollment. And we're also going to go out and do consultation with community members so that we make sure that we're bringing as much information to this group for deliberation as possible about the ways that you could go from a general area of interest to a shared area of action. And so by our April meeting, we'll be able to have agreement about what the areas of work are. So then we'll go back out to you in the spring of 2027 for one-on-ones. And from that, be able to develop a draft plan. So that really says, this is what the council will be doing. And that will be available by sort of late summer. And then the October board meeting of 2027 will focus on your adopting that plan formally, which gets us in a month ahead of the mandated deadline in the legislation. So then once we have that clarity from you all, that gives the staff at our new office, which I assume will be more than Debbie at that point. That'll happen in late fall of 2027. And they, by the statute, are required to consult with both the legislature and the governor's office about that work plan. So that'll give us enough time to do that. And then we'll be able to finalize the work plan by February of 2028. Again, so that in general is what this is planned to be. any questions or any, is there any ideas that you have that you should take into consideration as we're turning this from a generalized idea to a more concrete plan?
You can marinate on it too, in addition to speaking right now, but yes, please don't.
Will there be opportunities for the public to comment as we progress? So maybe virtually online and that they can provide feedback on things that we're working through and prioritizing?
Absolutely, because these meetings are all Bagley key meetings. We've created really clear roadmap moments where there's gonna be something clear that'll be presented to the public in advance of this meeting that people can give public comment. We also have that opportunity after we've got the areas that we like prioritize for you all, that the staff can go out and understand better from a variety of perspectives, what actions they want us to take. So we've got both the formal Bagley key moments and then opportunities.
Other questions, comments?
Yes.
So as part of this work, we'll develop the priorities that ultimately we'll all agree upon. As part of the strategic plan, I always think about strategic plans that the vision is so important too, the vision statement. So are we gonna go spend some time on that vision statement of what I mean, I know we have the statutory, there's a lot of goals in there, but what the vision that we want for us.
I would like to say yes. I think we can advertise that.
Finds where we want to end up, right?
Exactly.
Don't know where you're going, any road will get you there.
I'm just chime in. I mean, I think that this is great feedback, even just hearing that feels like a very helpful centralizing focus. I think that's why we sort of stacked these two items together, 5 and 6, with this sort of just a very brief, okay, here's a very high level timeline of where we're going to get to and how we're going to meet all of the statutory goals. I will also add in the agenda materials for this, which are again available online. There's a whole list of all of the statutory obligations for the council, along with like how we're planning on meeting them and the timeframes in which we would do so. So I think when we really open up in the next item for kind of prioritization opportunities, I think we could maybe even discuss a little bit more about vision and what other components that aren't reflected here we want to include.
And what we want to have it reflected in here as well. Any other questions for Kathy before we dive into that work? Yes, go ahead.
I'm just wondering if you all have access to the work of the Higher Education Roundtable that the Governor Newsom appointed that has been meeting for many years until recently. There might be something to help as a foundation or a liftoff. There might be pieces that are important to recognize. I know it had a heavy emphasis on how to build out work pathways in places like the Central Valley, the Inland Empire. Maybe there's some places to start so it's not starting from scratch, and then maybe dusting off what might need to be freshened up with something that reflects changing data. I don't know if you all have access or who holds on to that information, but many of the people around this table, certainly all the organizations around this table, have been a part of that group for 6 or 7 years, I think it is.
For us to take stock and see what we can build on. That's a great point. And now we have a few folks who might have to leave at 3, so I want to keep going and urge you, if you need a break, take a break, but we're not gonna have a break. So, before we go to the next one. Okay.
Yes.
All right, so I guess we have an opportunity for public comment. If you have public comment, come to the microphone at the teeny tiny podium. Do we have a call-in system here for public? I'm sorry.
Yeah. It looks like we don't have any we don't have any speaker slips that have been submitted. I think if there's anyone else in the room who would like to make public comment, feel free to come to the podium. And if you are joining us virtually and want to make a public comment, please use the raise hand feature, and Regil can let us know in a couple minutes, well, in a few seconds, whether there are any hands raised.
Okay. And I guess I'll announce, in case people aren't seeing the slide, the public comments are limited to 2 minutes. Any in the room, but we'll see if there's any. Who's monitoring the Zoom for us?
Regil is doing that.
And
We have two people in the Zoom room who would like to make public comment.
Okay, will you manage that for us?
Yes, I can. Okay, for the first individual, I am allowing you to talk now. So Sarah, you can make your public comment.
Good afternoon, Council Chair and members. My name is Sara Buabipsa, and I'm here on behalf of the Institute for College Access and Success, or TICAS, to share our support for the California Education Interagency Council. California's higher education and workforce ecosystems both strive to improve the economic well-being of students, whether through traditional degrees or career education and workforce programs. Given rapid changes in the federal landscape and California's lack of a coordinating or bridge-building entity, we look forward to seeing the Council identify gaps in student experiences and outcomes and provide lawmakers with impactful recommendations. We look forward to engaging with the Council and informing it on opportunities to bolster consumer protections, expand access to affordable education, and yield stronger outcomes for California students. Thank you so much.
You? Others? Rachel?
Next we have Atsam. Atsam, I'm allowing you to talk. Okay, go ahead, Atsam.
Hi, my name is Adam Aquat, and I'm a retired secondary educator from Orange County, and I now consult with a philanthropic group, Modern States, and they go ahead and provide free prep courses for CLEP exams, college level examination program, and it's a great way to help supplement students in high school as well as college to go ahead and earn college credit via passing a CLEP exam given by College Board. They've been around for over 50 years. It's something where all Cal States, all community colleges accept CLEP exams, and Modern States has saved people over $59 million just last year. It's something where I would love to be part of the strategic plan to kind of help include CLEP exams. It's great for students that are maybe in a rural area or where they cannot go and access it physically, and yet they can go and still access the college content and earn college credit. It's something where students who have conflicts in their high school and or college, because a course may be offered at a time that they cannot get to because of family or work responsibilities. It's something where students can go ahead and take these on their own time and still earn college credit. I would love to be able to somehow have them qualify for A through G. If they pass a college level course, why not give them the credit or the recognition of A through G, because they have passed not only a high school level, but a college level course. And I'd like to go and see if there's any way we could work toward that, as well as including CLEP exams, successful CLEP exams in the California dashboard for college readiness. It would help underserved, underrepresented students, and with community colleges taking 3 to 4 years to complete, 4-year colleges takes 5.5 to 6 years, and only 62% actually do. Helping the supplemental program with modernstates.org. That's modernstates.org. I'd love to help. My name is Adam Aquat. I'm at AOCONSULT at yahoo.com. That's AO Consult. AOED Consult, AOEDCONSULT at yahoo.com. I'd love to be part of a conversation. I just want to help people.
Thank you. Rachel, do we have any others?
No one else would like to make public comment at this time.
All right. Thank you very much. This is the part where we get to dig in and start to think together about what we think the priorities should be as we move forward. So this is really input for Kathy and the strategic plan, as well as to get our brains moving, that we can marinate on this and then send ideas throughout the next coming months as well. So we'd like to start. I'd like to be sure that I hear from everyone. So we could go around the table, but if there's somebody with a burning story, you
I'll
look
start.
like you're
Yeah,
ready.
sure. Yeah, I'll start. Which I wrote down notes, which is I can't even read my own writing, which is yes, you graduates. Don't look that up. No. A couple of these actually come out of the document that you handed out, so I think that we're all in alignment. One is improving the resources on education and career advising. I think from our perspective, we collect a lot of the information through the labor market information division, which is on last here. And then we worked with the Centers of Excellence quite a bit in terms of that outputs. What I'd like to see is if we can, one, look at that data and that information that is given already. We obviously work with C2C, which also compiled a lot of those outcomes pieces. But I think on the career advising piece, that's where I feel like the K-12 system, we really have a huge gap. We work with our community colleges a lot from our perspective, but not so much our CSUs and our UC system. And so if there's a way that we could broaden that and also look where the gaps are in terms of some of the advising piece. So I think that's one component. One, this is not an easy one, Debbie or Linda, which is articulation. And so articulation obviously is one piece that I think coming from the community college system where I started my career, many times, we lost time, as Linda mentioned, and resources because the articulation agreements in some areas and districts worked really well. And others districts that did not work as well. And so a lot of students lost a lot of time in that. And so if there's a way we could think through from this council's perspective, even if it's uplifting the ones that it works well in and why, that's something I think that would be important to be able to make sure that our students are moving quickly or more quickly out of the community college system into the UCs or the state universities in a manner that is meaningful. And then I think the third one, I think you told us to have like at least three. We are working on a workforce program right now with also WestEd. Kathy is helping with this. It's a priority jobs list that will come out hopefully September, October, before the end of the administration, where that jobs list will actually spell out occupations within the state of California that are meeting goals of higher wages, with occupational career pathways. And so I think in coordination with the council, love to lift that up, but also of all of the purposes that it has and what it could be utilized for within the CSUs, the UCs, and our community college system, aligning with our workforce development system as well. So I think there's a lot of that. I will add one more, which, because I'm sitting next to consumer affairs, we do so much work around certification programs under our side of the house, is if there was a better way to align resources, I'll look at finance too, sorry, finance, that many times, I know, sorry, we'll finish that tomorrow, is so many times, and I know this is an issue that we've been faced with on our side, but it's like, if we're trying to get more RNs, so many times with like in the community college system, I'm not sure, probably with the CSUs as well, but it's even if they're increasing by 20 to 40 students, that has to go through a whole nother process, which really stalls a lot of the work that happens there. And so if there's ways, I know it's probably a legislation fix, but if there's ways we could think about how that could be better in the future to undo that unnecessary extra step, that would be helpful, I think, for opening up that pipeline.
And what is that process that you're talking about?
I'll let you explain it probably better than I can, but yeah, I know.
Yeah. So what I think you're speaking to, Secretary, is just like the oversight of like Board of Registered Nursing or Board of Vocational Nursing and Psych Tech. So they approve the school programs by which, the students take. So anytime that a program needs to or would like to increase enrollment, they need to go back to the board and make that case. But
I'll just flag that that's the kind of thing that we should be able to dive into and try to understand and unpack. I think that's a great example.
Good.
there's two sides to that.
Yeah,
So there's a
right.
consumer protection side. So,
Sure.
yeah.
Do you want to continue, Christine?
No, I
Yeah,
was
well,
just
no, we
saying
can go,
that
we can move on.
definitely a great point and worth diving into.
Yeah. Sir, did you finish your list?
I did, yeah, thank you so much.
Christine, do you want to pick up on your thoughts?
Okay. Tough act to follow. Definitely, just from the Department of Consumer Affairs perspective, we have a challenge just in terms of resources. So we have been trying to get upstream in the pipeline and to get, through outreach events and things like that. But I personally would very much like to see increased partnership with this council on that effort. So being able to partner to make sure students see, we've been trying to, we haven't done it yet, but develop a tool whereby students could visually see, okay, what occupations, what licensed occupations could I obtain through just this training or a 4-year degree or something like that. So a one-stop shop where, you know, they come to Department of Consumer Affairs to get that license, to get that RN license or contractor's license. But those are the folks that have, you know, gone through a lot of hoops to get to that point. How do we reach them, you know, in the K through 12 earlier, to start educating them on these great industries and opportunities that lie ahead, and make it so much easier for folks to be able to clearly see what education or certifications they need. So that's been one of our long-term goals. Just haven't had the resources. We're not exactly resourced for workforce development, but we've been definitely through partnerships trying to expand that.
Shall we go down this row or?
Yeah, I just, lots of thoughts, and I really I appreciate the readiness rubric. I think that was your creation to really help us like think through. We can't do everything, even though that list of goals was really long. But you know, building on what Secretary Knox said too about really having clear pathways and using this agency for good to break down barriers. So I would say number one is how can this agency work together to break down barriers for students, whether that's advising, whether that's for a credential program, a baccalaureate program, a graduate program. So thinking through that lens. I mean, for example, in really trying to better understand you know, what capacity is in the sector for all of these programs. For example, you said RNs, over half of the RNs in the state are prepared in an institution. So we're really integral to this work. So I really want to be thoughtful and intentional about how look at the capacity of the independent sector. And I think to do that, I think this council could create a roadmap. So I think there's a lot of programs out there that people don't see connected. So could this council create a program? I think that's something that would be low cost. But potentially could, you know, be on this website. And that goes to your point about really helping students see where they can go and see their pathway. So I think that we really put our attention and focus on the student, you know, the work of this council will really be benefited. So if we look at the student, how do we most benefit a student in the state of California to transition from K through 12 to the program that best fits them? I think we're an incredibly big state. So I'm thinking about what Tony said, those regional programs we set up early, and it was really to bring in the talent and the people and the community partners, our education partners in a specific region that could really focus, okay, what does this, in Fresno, for example, we knew that they needed, you know, more business masters, not masters, but business administration, agricultural administration. So I think this interagency council, if we established or looked at a framework, I mean, by the end of the year, having 3 regional networks, bringing together the partners, that would be really beneficial, just to help break down the work. The other thing that I looked at is just the assets around this table. And the beauty of this council is that it's an interagency council. So not creating more work, but really tapping into what issues, what programs bring us together that we could go and be really thoughtful and strategic. And one that comes to mind, the secretary and I recently spoke about, is Workforce Pell. And it is a new program. As we all know, at the federal level, there's a lot to be worked through. It's not going to be this, brand new, there's a lot of hoops to walk through. But it really is at the intersection of every single agency around here. And I think it meets one of the goals of this council, which is to uplift student opportunities. So I think Workforce Pell could be a tremendous opportunity for this Interagency councils. We are going to have to learn from one another. And then speaking through the student experience, breaking down barriers, transfer, it is something that we're all involved in. We all, the boards mentioned the ADT at UCLA. It's something that we've been working on with James Todd about improving the ADT transfer process. So I think if we could look at student transfer collectively and find some opportunities we all work together intersegmentally, but perhaps there's some, opportunities for this council as well.
I'd like to just add one thought to what you just said. If we could have work groups that are cross agency, let's define some areas of support on the regional initiatives that were undertaken earlier. I don't think we ever learned what came of those. And one of the things that would be very useful as a starting point, if we're going to try to, build on that, is to learn from it. And so that may be something that we want to put on the agenda to reap the insights that came from that work.
I think part of that too, Madam Chair, is looking at some of those other programs too, like the regional pathways programs. I was looking at there's so many programs we have. Golden State Pathways, the regional K through 12 collaboratives. I mean, perhaps there can even be a roadmap around that. Debbie, just looking at all the regional programs and it just again, so we have, a playbook to look at. So we're not duplicating.
All right.
Well, let me just start off with this. I love everything as long as it's cosmetic.
We're adjourned.
All right, okay.
Not why we invited you here, Michelle.
No, actually, it's interesting because a lot of you know this, I'm at finance now, but obviously my background is all higher ed and all K-12. And so I feel like I'm coming back, which is interesting because I think a lot of the topics that we're talking about, and I kind of had just 3 quick points, and two of them are more macro level ones, maybe more of an example of something just to consider as we think about this. I feel like we've been talking about this for at least 2 decades. At least through the 2 decades in which I've been, this idea of how do we create put through, not just K-12 to whether it's community college or a 4-year, and then the last leap into whatever is a good first range, right? And I think, several decades ago, this idea was pretty novel that you would have workforce or businesses even be engaged in some of these conversations. So I'm glad we're kind of getting there. And I feel like we've made lots of strides. And to Kristen's point, I think there are a lot of little programs that we have been uplifting that maybe just also need to get connected, right? Connected with our higher ed partners, connected with K-12, connected with industry. But I think when we talk about, and I'm been listening, and again, I feel like we've been talking about the transfer pathway for decades. I feel like this articulation conversation is something we continue to try to navigate, because at the end of the day, it's about meeting, to your point, being student centered, I think, in our approach of things, right? And maybe it's because I'm now the parent of 2 children in college, and I myself consider myself fairly knowledgeable in this space, and I still am like, okay, hold on, let's see. Okay, does this articulate to here? And if you're going to transfer this here, so if that says just me as a parent and not my child, I'm not sure what that means for our students that have little resources at home or little support to navigate it. And so I agree with this conversation about opportunity to talk about articulation, particularly between the segments. But I would argue that there's an articulation between the segment into workforce also. And what does that look like, right? And at what point is there the off-ramp? Because it may not be an off-ramp at a 4-year degree. It may be an off-ramp at a 2-year degree. Or it may even be prior to that, or it might be dual enrollment programs in the K-12 space and then moving in. So
you know, I think as we talk about the strategic plan and when we think about, you know, comment roadmap, maybe that's not what we call it. But it feels to me like if I am a student who is, let's say in my high school, you know, age, and I'm looking at my next steps, I'm not necessarily going to know, I got to go to 5 different places or 5 different websites to navigate where I'm going. Or if I'm about to graduate and I need a license, I think we still have a lot of work in that space, right? And that's that marketing space thing. So again, something to think about. And then I just was thinking about this, and I don't know how it interplays with this conversation, but you know, we've talked about budget, we've talked about resources, and in the past, obviously 5 or 6 years, those resources have been bolstered because of COVID and having some of additional monies going into a particular K-12 system, right, to navigate some of the challenges. And those are going away. But I wonder about just thinking, and again, I leave this to the academic experts in the room, about are we still seeing, and I do think we are still seeing long-term COVID impacts of readiness. And so when we talk about articulation, we need to look at it differently a little bit for this group that's coming up through that were COVID impacted at some point during their K-12 path. And what does that look like for having them ready for whatever that might be, whether again, it's a community college or a 4-year or otherwise. So again, that's my it's an example, but it's something that as we continue to talk about articulation, it has to be flexible enough to be reactive to the environmental factors that have been occurring with us too. So, and sometimes that's hard with big enterprises. And I know trying to make changes, even in A through G, feels like it's moving a mountain, but this might be a good space to start, you know, this might be a good space to start to have some of those dialogues. And perhaps there are some commonalities between segments and between industry that they're all seeing that we can sort of figure out if there's ways to solve or to provide non-monetary resources to address. No, but appreciate being able to sit in and be a voice and listen to what's happening. So thank you. Lily?
I got stuck at non-monetary research. That's what she said, but I'm still trying to get past that, but
Keep reminding.
well, +1 everything else that you said. I know you didn't mean it. I know you didn't mean the non-resource.
Joe, no.
Yeah, let Joe know, please. I do want to say, I listened to what you said about how do you get the word out about these certificate opportunities. You know, when school starts in September, we'd be happy to send letters to each of the 1,000 districts about those opportunities. It seems to me that there is a connection when students learn that they might go work, you know, in a lab and then if they want to get on the pathway to become an RN, you know, and so to all of you, we'd be happy to put those kind of letters out to the 1,000 districts in the state about opportunities that students probably don't know about. And that's my thesis. I think most students don't know about the opportunities that exist. And until we can build up the counseling infrastructure, I think we have to create internship opportunities, hands-on opportunities. You know, we have a very robust infrastructure around, you know, career, technical education, but we need to do more. Some students know and some don't. Students who go to the Future Farmers of America, they are all over that. They are all over that. They know. They're like, we know agribusiness. We know how much California exports, but there are many students who don't know about that or don't know about, you know, the law academy or whatever it is at their school. And so I think that I think we have to put our focus on more career technical education, hands-on opportunities for students, especially in high school, to know what the careers are. This next week, we're launching a paid internship program for students in LA and Oakland who are going to work in STEAM education. And the whole idea is that they will get on a pathway to a STEAM job. But there's still about 28,000 jobs, 70,000 jobs for unfilled. And so I think that's where we have to put some emphasis is on career technical education, continue to build on the dual enrollment. And then since our goal is to create a strategic plan by October of 2027, I'm wondering if we could still between now and then promote a few high growth industries for the students who are going to graduate before our strategic plan is written. Just let them know that there are opportunities to get a certificate. Let them know that we need nurses. Let them know that we need teachers and we have a scholarship. Whatever the high growth industry is, that we promote it. So that while we're getting to the 2027 goal, we also have something for students who are already in school now and going to graduate about the time that they read or their schools read our sheet.
Meredith, are you ready?
I am ready. Yes,
All
thank
right.
you. So you heard from Ahmed, who I didn't want to embarrass him, but he is such a fabulous partner. We're so fortunate to have him as chair of the Academic Senate, not for a whole lot longer. But you heard that really top of mind for the university right now is both student preparedness and, is there a need to reinstate standardized testing of some sort? How do we ensure that students are coming in prepared to the University of California? But I think related is around A through G. In 2026 and beyond, what do students actually need to know in order to come to the University of California and to be successful? So I think there's a really rich conversation that has been taking place and that will take place on A through G, but related to student preparedness. And so I don't want to belabor Kristen's point. I know it's come up multiple times. So I would just say that, transfer also continues to be a big focus for UC. And more so I'm thinking about, I think, developing more of a framework for ADT creation and then monitoring, I think more that what's currently in place. And I have some colleagues who I think have some specific thoughts around how the council can be engaged specifically on transfer. And then I would also note that one of the big issues that particularly President Milliken is thinking a lot about, and I don't want to use the word master plan, but is given all the technological advancements and given AI, is what does the future of higher education actually need to look like? Yeah. And I know that often, and we certainly, as we think about the legislature's focus this year, they had a number of sort of master plan related bills. And as much as I appreciate, the thinking behind them, it really feels like they're kind of tinkering around the edges. And so instead thinking, okay, given AI, given sort of where the workforce is going, what jobs are going to be eliminated, what jobs are maybe going to be created, or, where we're going to need workers for, is what are the degrees that we actually need? And also, how many of those degrees do we need? And really being able, I think one of the things we lack right now, at least in just within our specific institutions, and so maybe where the council could come into play, and I really appreciated the emphasis on data to help inform decisions as part of this council, is, how many degrees in certain areas do we actually need? Because we have a lot of legislation that says, let's offer more PhDs at this institution. Do we need more PhDs? Maybe in certain areas, but also maybe not. And we have a responsibility to be offering degrees that have value to our students and to our graduates. So that's something we're talking a lot about regularly at UC. And I think that the council will play a really important role in helping put some more data and partnership behind that. Because it's great for all of our institutions to be doing that thinking individually, but it really is only going to have so much impact if we're doing it in our own silos.
Yes, Kelsey.
Great, thank you. As we started this conversation, I thought, oh, the places we could go. There are so many opportunities before us, but I want to double down on a couple of things that have already been said. I think particularly around internships, many of us are talking about that, apprenticeships, and I would emphasize, as the superintendent did, that they are both paid or credit bearing internships as a matter of equity and importance that all students have hands-on applied learning and experiences, right? That makes meaning and prepares them for the global workforce, I think is critically important. I also want to acknowledge the AI work that, we in the CSU have, the AI acceleration work board that Secretary Knox is on. And I think it aligns very well to the workforce development strategic plan that I believe, I'm sorry that he's not here now, but that I believe is supposed to be finalized in July, that anticipates the jobs, right, that are coming. And it's anticipating from 2023 to 2033 And what's interesting is AI is probably going to significantly change even what is in that plan, right? And so how do we help and support AI in the classroom, but also impacting the workforce? And then the third thing I think particularly that I want to double down on is dual enrollment. I had the opportunity to serve in community colleges for 5 years plus the CSU. And I appreciate the community college vision for 2030 around every high school student taking at least 3 dual enrollment courses. And I think that should be similar for the rest of us, quite honestly. And that is a matter of equity, quite, frankly, and not just to get into college, but actually the research does show to be successful in universities. And so I think if there's $100 million, we should really all think about how we do that and have a more holistic, seamless experience. The two new things that I would add that have not been talked about though is affordability. So the CSU has delivered its CSU Forward Strategic Plan in September, where we and our SIM framework, our student success framework, every one of our consultations, everywhere we go, it is about affordability. And what we believe, and I think you all would agree, is that tuition is pretty reasonable in the state of California. It's reasonable. What is not reasonable is housing and affordability and total cost of attendance. And I think there is a moment for us in the state of California to think about what affordability is and how it impacts our students and time to degree, particularly because many of them are first gen, working, caring for other folks, and how do we take that into consideration? And lastly, the one thing that I'm exceptionally passionate about is the re-engagement and re-enrollment of our 6 million students who have dropped out and have debt. And I don't know that any of us have really strong strategic plans to go get them, to bring them back. I think it is a moral imperative because many of them, as you know, have loans and no degree or certificates. And so would love to see a more concentrated effort, particularly in establishing the workforce and upskilling and, reskilling for folks who already have some college, but they have not finished. And so how do we get them back through certificates or through degrees? I think would be a great moment for this council and for the state.
I'm gonna sit somewhere else next time, so. No. There's a really love the conversation so far, and so much of you have pointed out things. I think that the California community colleges are also really invested in with all of you in these partnerships. I wanted, just because you kind of mentioned two pieces of the equity and the affordability piece. As we come together to think about like what does the world look like with higher education and what degrees do we need, I think geographically also trying to think about how we're serving Californians is really important. So I put that at a place of how do we cover the state, especially around affordability in terms of housing, and what kind of access are we providing to what programs? And so there's some kind of equation here in terms of equitable access to programs that are going to have meaningful results for students. I think is worth this in this conversation around data, how we're really redesigning the experience intersegmentally for our students. I'm going to tap as well into the transfer, and I'll tell you what keeps me up at night. One is our plan and my boss, but that's a different. But our transfer velocity is something to really work on. We have, the fact that we have almost 2.3 million students enrolled in California community colleges, and so few of them get towards baccalaureate attainment and transfer with our intersegmental partners. I think it's a really important thing for us to talk about and think through what those barriers are. You're right, Michelle, that the conversations are decades long. But that doesn't mean as well that we shouldn't really try to think about where and how we serve those. And so those conversations happen in many places. There's an AB 928 committee, I'm sure, that will be taking some of this on, as well as, hopefully ourselves. One particular point, as I think through where our transfer velocity is how we spend our energy and work with students in the California community colleges. So we end up preparing students for multiple systems. And so the more that we can focus on, I'm really glad to hear about your way of leaning into the ADT, which is like, how do we really make that a vehicle for students across systems so that we're not pairing them in multiple ways? And also, how are we leaning into the kind of the STEM access issues around equity and access and transfer, I think, is one of those places as well. We also have some, as I look through our areas of work, I think about the technology too that we can talk about and the infrastructure that's needed to better support all of our intersegmental relationships. That does not just mean public higher ed, but that also means, working with AICCU and our partners on automating a lot of this work. Like, we know the big structural changes that can happen. You look at that pipeline of how we get students from one place to another. We should find ways to cut that down and use technology and have a conversation here or a recommendation out of here on what would really support that. How can we support the infrastructure also of the career passport work as well as transfer? Those were the main pieces as well. I will also tag on to the apprenticeship and work-based learning and experiential learning frameworks. I think we can learn a lot across our systems about how we can scale that and perhaps find ways so that we're not siloed in our approaching our industry partners. But when we're thinking about CTE pathways, or we're thinking about students that are in the humanities and the social sciences who also need these kind of job skills, finding ways for us to build those structures together. The last thing that was on my mind as well was the dual enrollment and the dual admissions programs. We didn't talk so much about the dual admissions, but I really also believe that that's something for us to create belonging for students in advance and find ways to cut down perceived distance in getting to a baccalaureate degree. I think ways to expand both the CSU and the UC dual admissions programs, I think are worth conversation here as well.
I think very articulately and concisely summarize everything that everyone has already.
In AI.
I had Claude running this entire time. So at GoBiz, our work every day, day in and day out, is working with employers. So the main points about operating in California, how they're looking to grow, what they need in order to be successful and scale in our state. And time and again, when we hear about the regulatory burdens or housing or affordability and many other pain points about running a business in California, everything that we always hear about what keeps them, of course, is the workforce. And the best in class and best in world universities that this state has to offer that create that workforce. And so one of the things that I think we at GoBiz and as economic developers across the state need to do a better job of is, too often I think we look at states like Texas or others that blank checks to companies to keep them, or to attract them. And what we are trying to do more of is the higher education infrastructure is very much about keeping and attracting and retaining business. And so being able to have, I think, a common language amongst all of us about how that works and what that means in making those connections. And I think that's very much what the governor had in mind with the Jobs First strategy, which is very much, I think, the twin component of the master plan for career education, very intentionally so. Stewart and Dee Dee were the co-chairs of that for a reason. That plan with its economic blueprint identifies a whole list of things that the state could continue to look at to maintain its economic competitiveness. But it also importantly, I think, uplists the 13 regional strategies that built it from the first place. So the West Ed, as you think about, community engagement, I want to make sure that we have a pretty diverse set of voices that are part of that process. And that includes the local economic development officials and chambers or employers within these communities and the industry, and the regions that I think will have a lot to say about where their communities are going and how they're positioning their own economic development initiatives. I think there's some very specific things about how we can think about industry engagement as part of all of this, including some of the points that have already been raised. How do we think about, data sharing between agencies and academic institutions so that we're, better identifying gaps? I think, how do we look at tracking the industry trends, of course, as folks have mentioned, to make sure that our programs are keeping pace with where technological change is going. That might mean things like removing barriers to curriculum development or approvals where we need to. But I also think we need to make sure that we're communicating and talking about not only how industry is weighing in on, curriculum needs and what that workforce looks like, but also how, the universities and colleges are creating new industries. So that transfer component, the research and emerging technology that's coming out of universities and colleges. And then finally, I think making sure that we also consider as part of our strategic plan, the models of what is working, right? Best practices in terms of, the Bosches here in Sacramento that are doing really interesting work with community colleges to make sure we are keeping that semiconductor industry here in the greater Sacramento region. Programs like ETP that, important incentives to the business community on developing and training a workforce effectively. So excited to be part of this. Really, really interesting conversations with things.
That's a good conversation. I'm gonna add, but first Stuart's gonna add.
Yeah, thanks. I do want to add one thing that is, I think, Emily really touched upon, that other states, when we're competing with businesses that may be looking at other states to go to, or they want to look at here, we should do more of, because what I've seen with other states is they bring in their community college partners from day one, their CSUs, their UC systems, into that conversation early and often, and start to design from that perspective. And I think that's really hit that on the head. It's like our heavy investments, well, it may not be incentives for them to get land and all of the things that other states do. Our heavy investments are around our education systems. That's why we have such robust business activity in the state of California. How do we bring in our K-12 system? How do we bring that along with our two systems that do that now in terms of either retention or attraction activities? We heard recently there was Alabama, did this whole thing. They said, that it's to a company up north. Anyway, they basically rolled out the red carpet, but they really were working with their community, because I was like, well, who was there? I need to understand what was the play. It was their community college and their state university was there. And they were able to really take a hold of that entity and attract this business to open there. They're also still in California, luckily, but at the same time, it's they expanded in another state based on what they saw there. Well, we have all that. We have better than that, and so how do we have that conversation? I think in the future would be really cool. Right.
No, it's great. I mean, I think what we're seeing is how important this table is, and how important this conversation is, and how important it is to have it regularly, because we have in California so many wonderful assets, but an incredibly fragmented governance structure. So everything is a tub on its own bottom, and we that is penny wise and pound foolish, to just speak Michelle's language for a moment, that we will benefit from figuring out how to stitch, align, organize, coordinate all of those elements in much more effective ways, identify the obstacles as you were doing that are in the way, and figure out, how do we start to remove those. So that's obviously one major priority for us, is to surface those issues. I want to just raise up the priority, which Tony's comment about the 70,000 jobs that might be unfilled is really raising to mind, which is part of our mission is to be analytic and do those analyses you mentioned, Meredith. And our audience for that is the governor's office, the legislature, the sectors. It's, a bigger audience than just those around the table, to take stock of the economic needs as they rapidly change, the demands for what certain kinds of work, and for certain kinds of skills and thinking abilities, and competencies that are new competencies that are different than just getting information in a classroom and spitting back facts on a test. We're really talking about developing other parts of the human brain and capacity as part of this, as well as what areas in which we might apply those abilities. And then we have to match that up to the supply. So it's both really understanding the potential demand and really understanding where we are with supply, and both of competencies and skills as well as areas of study, and then figuring out what are the barriers to boosting the supply, and doing the part of that you've all mentioned: articulation, alignment, all of those things. Again, we do it in California almost exclusively at the regional level or the local level. There are states in which they're able to get their systems to talk to each other across the whole state. That might be an aspiration for us, that we actually could align some of these pathways, you know, in a way that it's not, did you go to Long Beach Community College and have an agreement with Long Beach City, you know, with the CSU there, but, you know, does that actually apply elsewhere across the state? And how do we think about that? Because clearly that is a very pressing need. We all want, you know, students to be able to get on satisfying, productive pathways, to have greased skids along those pathways, to be able to do that efficiently, not to go into debt and leave without a degree. That's just tragic when that happens. All of that lost capacity, which is the result of the fragmentation that we, you know, inherited. So, you know, we really can be thinking, and there may be things that we surface that we can't do here at this table that need to be done legislatively or in other ways, but it's our job to figure out what those would be, to stitch together this coherent system that is really supportive of the state and of students. So I think we've got fabulous ideas. They're, I'm sure, too big, but you have to have
Hours will be.
Debbie tried to right size us at the beginning, but it was a futile act, but we'll come back around to that. But I do think, you know, that we've got a lot of good work that can be done. One other thing I just wanted to raise up is, I think it was James who mentioned the career passport. We have some tools that are emerging that could be really, really valuable for students to know what's ahead of them, for them to be able to demonstrate their competencies, for the higher ed system to be able to use those to bring back some of those students and grant them credits, et cetera, but also for them to be able to move from high school into college, into careers. So I hope we'll really think about both the data questions and the new tools that we're developing as part of the priority for this stitching together. I think at this point, we are ready for public comment. We could take a 5-minute break. Is that all right?
We should probably take public comment before a
And then we'll
break
take
if
the break,
we,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Linda, can I add one more thing
Yeah,
to
please.
the public comment that I've been thinking about as we've been thinking about this continuum of experience students for them to find success. So from potential to associate's degree, 4-year degree, baccalaureate degree, what's noticeably absent from the plan is graduate education. And it is essential to California's competitiveness.
Yes.
Aggressive with them in this, but I'm thinking about the teachers the state needs, the behavioral psychologists the state needs, the pharmacists, engineers, the nurses. You know, so as we think about the continuum, I just want to put a note into graduate education.
Can I just chime in?
Yes, please.
So I just want to thank you all so much for these comments. This is obviously, I can't wait to hire people to help move some of this great work forward. And I think this gives myself and the West Ed team a lot of great thoughts about how we embark on the next step of these discussions. I also, you know, something that's been looming very large in my mind is, you know, again, that November 2027 timeline is almost a year and a half away. And I really appreciate Member Thurman's comment about kind of what can we do now, right? So just want to highlight that as something I'm also listening. I'm listening and thinking about how do we structure this? How do we consolidate? Sort of as trying to think about synergies, and there's so many synergies across everything you that you all spoke about. I don't know. It's worth trying to summarize what those are, but I think. To your point about career passport, I mean, there's a lot of what we know is already working. The medium
Might work
well,
when it's finished.
yes, exactly. But the media materials, you know, as Member Sori's mentioned, there's a sort of draft readiness rubric in the media materials. And maybe there are things that when we put some of these ideas through that assessment, they're ready now, and maybe there's opportunities to move forward even in advance of 2027. So anyway, just wanted to flag that while we're talking about strategic planning and big picture ideas, don't want to lose sight of that. There might be some where we're ready to run now. So that's exciting.
All right. I think we're ready for public comment. Is there any public comment in the room.
I think speaker slip here, Daniela. Okay, she has some handouts. It's actually just a light.
It's microphone shaped, so.
I know.
I think you can hear me. So, good afternoon, council members. My name is Daniela Rodriguez, and I serve as a policy manager at Immigrants Rising, an organization that for 20 years has dedicated itself to empowering immigrants, regardless of status, to achieve their educational and career goals through personal, institutional, and professional information. Our experience with working at the nexus of higher education and career has given us a unique insight to the barriers faced by this population, as well as the opportunities for California to meaningfully integrate immigrant students and learners in these spaces. Our recently published California Blueprint for Immigrant Socioeconomic Prosperity, which you'll be receiving a copy of the executive summary shortly, presents recommendations for how California can ensure that immigrants are not left behind due to simply their immigration status and can achieve socioeconomic prosperity as well. California is home to an estimated 94,000 undocumented students of education, plus tens of thousands more incapable folks who will eventually enter the workforce. Since 2017, as the federal government has stopped accepting applications for DACA and other similar programs, it has locked out thousands of students who have grown up in California and often competed with the entire student population here without access to traditional employment. Despite these barriers, undocumented students represent a critical talent pipeline and priority sectors identified in the Master Plan for Career Education. Ensuring their inclusion in each priority and goal of the council's strategic plan that is forthcoming is important to advance equity and also strengthen California's workforce and economy. We look forward to working with the council to ensure that all Californians, regardless of their status, are intentionally, meaningfully, and seamlessly integrated into each priority set forth by this council. And with that, thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it. We have others? And I'll just remind folks that the comments are no more than 2 minutes.
Good afternoon, buenas tardes. I'm Spade Viveros Walton. I'm with Public Advocates. We are a civil rights, legal, and advocacy organization here in California. And Public Advocates is also part of the California Higher Education Equity Coalition. I'm going to say a couple of things that I'm really grateful to hear that a lot of you have elevated. We have a state goal of a 70% attainment rate across the state. And closing the gap would mean that we would have to produce 1.3 million additional degrees and credentials from what is currently in the pipeline. Closing this gap would mean that we have to re-engage 6 million Californians who have some college and debt. Closing this gap would also mean that in concurrently into focusing on a core affordability agenda, we also have to resource students in order for them to finance whatever a post-secondary pathway they would like to pursue. We hope to partner with all of you individually in the organizations and institutions that you represent, but also with CEIC to build for those who would not have the opportunity and access to those that are not currently in the pipeline, and to re-engage the 6 million Californians that we would like to get back into the pipeline. Appreciate your time and your work and look forward to working with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Ana Alvarado. I'm with the California Edge Coalition. We are a statewide advocacy organization uniting labor, education, social justice, and workforce partners to advance economic mobility for Californians. First, we want to congratulate you as members of the Interagency Council and recognize Executive Director Debbie Cochran's leadership at this first meeting. We really appreciate all the ideas that were brought up today, and we really appreciate the expertise and leadership each council member brings to this table. We recognize the strong education and workforce programs California has built across many systems. This council has an important opportunity to build on those strengths, support greater alignment, and keep students and workers at the center of these discussions, especially those building skills and pursuing family-sustaining careers. We look forward to partnering with you and advance the important work ahead. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. Congratulations to everyone, actually. My name is Sophia Khan. I'm the policy director at California Institute. We are a nonprofit, nonpartisan research and policy organization that represents critical higher education and workforce issues. California Competes was a strong advocate for the creation of this council because we believe California needs a collaborative statewide body that can bring together leaders to address intersectional and cross-sector issues and align education with workforce pathways. Today, the council has the incredible opportunity to create new systems alignment that California needs to move seamlessly through education and into careers with families supporting youth. This work can enhance efforts happening already in your individual sectors to create stronger institutions. Key to the council's ability to effectively do this will be your willingness to engage in meaningful dialogue and identify solutions that center the student and the quality and accessibility of their educational and employment learning. We encourage members to be deeply informed by the rigorous analysis from the council's staff to understand the state perspective on these issues. In addition, staff as an independent research organization, we're happy to offer ourselves as a resource as they engage in this work. Most of all, we hope members feel excited to do this work and about this opportunity and empowered to tackle the incredibly important issues that California and its learners need you to address. Thank you for the opportunity to provide this comment and feel the first working with you.
My name is William Franco. I'm the commander of the Veterans Affiliated Council. Thank you all for you guys' leadership and being here to help ensure that our California will thrive economically and provide the education that is needed to those who need it most. So at the Veterans Affiliated Council, I have 32 installations throughout the state. Some of those are in rural areas, so I ask you please keep in mind some of those in the Mojave region that might need a little bit more vibrancy and a little bit of education. I currently am working with Dr. Clement on the AI cybersecurity workforce development roadmap. So I encourage you to, ingest some more information and kind of help you along the way, if you will. So, working with the repository. I know there's a lot of good information out there, and it sounds like from this body, one of the things that may be a good idea is just to kind of build that database with AI and, cybersecurity concerns. Putting something in a general location may behoove us as a collective. And with that being said, I just wanted to say thank you for what you guys are doing, and we're very excited to work with you guys. So appreciate your time.
All right, do we have public comments on the Zoom?
Yes, we have 3 members of the public wanting to make public comment. So first we have Chris Jenny. So Chris, I will allow you to talk now. Okay.
Good afternoon, Chair and Council members. My name is Chris Jenny, and I'm with John Burton's Advocates for Youth. Thank you for your leadership in coordinating California's multitude of public systems to improve post-secondary and then career outcomes for all Californians. As you develop your strategic plan, we urge you to include targeted strategies that support students with the greatest needs, those who have experienced foster care or homelessness. Key priorities include improving access to post-secondary preparation through targeted investments in middle school and high school for students experiencing foster care or homelessness, reforming and expanding access to financial aid programs such as the Middle Class Scholarship for Foster Youth, Chafee Grant, and Cal Grant, expanding affordable student housing, including evidence-based models like college-focused rapid rehousing, and strengthening the capacity of basic needs centers on campuses statewide. Thank you for your consideration and commitments to advancing equitable opportunities for California's young people.
Thank you, Chris. Next we have Christian Osmeña. Christian, go ahead.
Thank you. Christian Osmeña on behalf of ASU. We at ASU are excited to work with you all to advance the council's work. As way of background, ASU is a California public university. We enroll 25,000 Californians in degree programs and serve thousands of others through K-12 and career education programs. We are rooted in California at the ASU California Center in Los Angeles, and we would invite any of you and all of you to visit us there. With partners who are California companies, we are building technologies and systems to meet learners' needs, and we have a deep focus on adult learners. We've built partnerships with California employers to provide scholarships covering 100% of tuition, helping to meet the affordability needs of those students and to address workforce needs for the companies. As you discuss capacity in the higher education sector, we hope that you will consider universities like ASU. We are acutely focused on community college transfer, working with partners at the Chancellor's Office and at the colleges. So thank you again for facilitating this conversation. We hope that you will think broadly about who is involved in this work, and we look forward to working with you to solve problems for California students.
Thank you, Christian. And lastly, we have Melissa Bardo. Melissa.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair and members of the Council. Melissa Bardo on behalf of Trust West, a research and advocacy organization working for the last 25 years to dismantle the racial and economic barriers embedded in our education system. We congratulate the Council on its first meeting, recognizing that this body has a historic opportunity to align its education, workforce, and support services in ways that meaningfully improve outcomes for all students, particularly those from racially, economically, and otherwise historically marginalized communities. We applaud Executive Director Cochran and the Council for developing a robust plan for areas of work, many of which are ripe for the convening of stakeholders to get aligned on statewide priorities. We want to uplift several comments made earlier regarding dual enrollment and express our support for this area of focus. For many years, Trust West has worked alongside stakeholders, practitioners, and students to expand equitable access to dual enrollment and secure resources in the state budget. And in that time, we've identified 3 areas of need that we believe the Council would be well positioned to take on in your strategic plan. Building on the master plan for career education's vision of strengthening students' career pathways from high school to college. The first being establishing statewide dual enrollment pathways goals. Second, convening TK-12 higher ed and workforce partners to develop a statewide model for dual enrollment partnership agreements. There's several examples from other states that have used similar bodies as this to advance that goal. And third, publishing disaggregated dual enrollment pathways outcomes to inform additional statewide policy changes that are needed to expand equitable access and participation. We're also pleased to see financial aid access, admissions policies, A through G, dual admissions, and transfer pathways identified as areas of work for the Council. We look forward to partnering and supporting your work going forward and hope you will consider Trust West a resource. Thank you.
All right. Any other comments?
There is no one else who would like to make public comment at this time.
All right, thank you. Well, at this point, I want to invite Debbie to share the notice of future meeting dates.
So we want to move to agenda item 7. Wonderful. So the law states that the council, after our first meeting, is required to meet at least once every 6 months. That is what we have put on the slide right here. We have tried to assess members' availability, working with your schedulers and yourselves over the next year and a half or so to get all of the meetings for 2026 and 2027, or at least the mandated required minimum calendar. We did choose those dates, again, working with your schedules, looking at your own agency meetings, looking at religious holidays and just other common sorts of conflicts. This is what we're planning on currently. We would be looking at Sacramento-based meetings, starting at 9:30 and ending at 4:30. This one, of course, we were scrambling to get it done in a month, so we've got a shortened time frame, but going forward, we're anticipating full day meetings. But also just want to flag, this is what we've got right now. We would, we plan on putting these on folks' calendars, but continuing to check in with everyone around availability. We know schedules can change. We know participants can change, especially with the change in administration, which we'll have at the end of this year. So dates should not be considered final until meetings are publicly noticed. But this is what we've got right now. Again, this is for the full council meeting, the minimum in the statute. If folks would like to, us to move forward on a plan with more than the minimum, we're happy to consider that. It also is separate and apart from any sort of, work groups or subcommittee meetings that might be established.
Okay. Any other thoughts? We're about to go to general public comment, which is on anything that was not agendized in the meeting. But before we do that, are there any other words of wisdom, comments, questions that anyone has. Yes, Dulcie.
I think as I hear all the various ideas and the moment that we're in, I think oftentimes we're reactive to something that is happening that we want to make better. And I hope that we're able to leave space for also innovation and thinking outside of the box about something new and great for the state of California. I don't know what that is right now, but I think I don't want us to always be around the barriers that we're currently experiencing versus starting with a blank slate on something and innovating is something that we're all really excited about also. And I think about that students, we often talk about the master plan, but the reality that's very linear. But the reality is our students and their behavior, they're swirling between our systems in a very flexible and adaptable way. And I don't know that our agencies have adjusted to that swirl. And so there might be moments when we think about student or learner behavior that we might be able to maximize on, and especially as we try to increase transfer rates for sure.
Well, and life is not such that you can just get on that one track the way the master plan originally thought. And you'll go to the CSU and you'll go to the UC and you'll go to the community college and then you'll do that and then you'll get your 40-year job that you're going to hold for the rest of your life. It's just not like that. That's right. I think that's a really good point. Well, so we will see each other in October, but I have personally taken on two goals as we've been talking. One is to see if we can pull together some of what the analytics need to be. There are some studies going on right now that we're already aware of and watching. And so I think that will be one goal, is to be able to say something about where is California heading and what does that mean for sort of demand and supply and all that. And the other is to continue to talk and work with folks about how we can move forward on the alignment questions that came up over and over and over again, because there are working groups lurking in there somewhere. so that we can get that going. But other thoughts, please share them with Debbie, with me, and with each other. Any other final comments? We'll go to general public comment. Heard a lot of public comment. Does anybody have something that was not agendized that they would like to share in general public comment before we adjourn? Wow, we do have someone. There is more to say.
Good afternoon. My name is Jessica Gonzalez, and I'm here on behalf of the Campaign for College Opportunity. We wanted to extend our sincerest gratitude to the state legislature and the governor for envisioning and investing in the Education Interagency Council, now more than ever amid a rapidly changing economy, shifting enrollment projections that are stretching traditional institutional silos of where students are learning, and unmet local workforce and economic needs. California needs a coordinating body that will intentionally address issues within and bridge silos across higher education, workforce, and social services systems to allow for Californians to access stable, well-paying careers for themselves and for their families. We're especially grateful for the foundational work that the Government Operations Agency and the Executive Director of the California Education Interagency Council, Debbie Cochran, has undertaken over the last couple of months to allow for you all to meet here today. We look forward to being a close partner to the council and as it shapes its strategic plan and advisory committees and work groups in the months to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other general public comment in the room? Being none, is there any general public comment on the Zoom?
No public comment from Zoom.
All right. I hereby adjourn this meeting at 3:47 p.m. See each other in October.
So much for our